The GOP springs into life on the back of the story that Biden took confidential documents and allegedly illegally stored them in his private office. Unbelievable. Donald Trump got castigated for that. The Republican Party, now in control of Congress, got a late Christmas present, and they've got a whole new issue to dive into. Marjorie Taylor Greene hit the ground running. You can see she posted this on Twitter January 9th. She said, Joe Biden took classified documents from the White House when he was vice president. The vice president does not have the power to declassify, only POTUS. Joe Biden stole classified documents, period. Dun, dun. That's the big S word. This is a very serious crime, she says. The Department of Justice and NARA can't sweep this under the rug and persecute Trump. Very interesting take. And she's got an interesting point. Now, she was asked about this in Congress. She was turning a corner, and question for Marjorie Taylor Greene from the media. Now that you've seen the story that Biden took these confidential documents, what is your opinion, Marjorie?
Congresswoman, do you have a message about the documents found at the Penn Biden Center?
Yeah, this is a very serious situation. Vice presidents cannot declassify documents, and the fact that Joe Biden is in possession of classified documents when he was vice president signals that we need to have a serious investigation into this.
That's right.
And there's a true two-tiered justice system stemming from Merrick Garland's Department of Justice and the way that President Trump has been treated, who is allowed to classify and declassify documents. Presidents can do that. Versus the Democrats and Joe Biden and how he's being treated. I'll echo again, impeach Biden, and that's what we need to do.
And what do you make of the timing of this? The documents were found in early November. Do you think?
Yeah, it's a bunch of BS.
Thank you. Wow. Impeach Joe Biden because it's a bunch of BS. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene, shocked that this is all happening as we speak. So impeach Joe, and it's BS that they covered this up until after the midterms. And she was saying this again on a very big show, which of course is the Tucker Carlson show. And Tucker asked her what she makes of this entire story. Here's what Marjorie had to say.
Huge story. It's very serious. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden conceivably stole those documents.
Wow.
What people need to understand is the President of the United States is the only one that can declassify documents, not the Vice President. For Joe Biden to steal documents and have possession of them, this is a serious investigation, and the communists at NARA can't hide it anymore. And Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice, they have to be held accountable if they don't treat Joe Biden exactly the same way they're treating President Trump. It's ridiculous and it's shameful.
Major double standards exist, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, we're coming in hot. It's BS they covered this up until after the midterms, and it's now time to impeach, which is just a great way to start a new Congress. Super fun. So we have more clips from Republicans. Representative James Comer says this Biden classified document debacle is well worth an inquiry.
Just yesterday, we learned that classified documents from Joe Biden's time as vice president were stashed in an unsecure closet. The National Archives knew about these documents several months ago, before the election.
Yes,
but the American people were just informed yesterday, thanks to some investigative reporting.
Very convenient.
Meanwhile, the FBI conducted a raid on former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence for the same violation. Why has President Biden, who has repeatedly kept classified materials in an unsecure location for years, never faced a raid? Is it because we have a two-tier system of justice?
Yes, it is. And Rep. James Comer, of course, is in the House of Representatives. He's been doing great work on a lot of this stuff, investigating the disgusting bureaucracy in multiple different facets for a long time, and they are in control of the House now. So we're looking forward to that. We've also got Steve Scalise, and so they were out. Republicans were giving a press conference today. The media asked the Republicans about the Biden documents, and they said, you know, is this different than what Trump did?
Discovery of Biden's classified documents. In the case of Mar-a-Lago, they were intentionally withheld, the classified documents, for more than a year, whereas with Biden's classified documents, those were voluntarily turned over. Does that make a difference in your view?
Well, okay, so the media is out here saying, well, Joe Biden's not as bad as Trump. Trump's really bad because he kept the documents for a long time. And Biden gave the documents right over. So this media person is having a difficult time with the concept, the difference between a president and a vice president. Obviously, the vice president literally has no claim for those documents, right? What's he going to say? What's Joe Biden going to say? I declassified them. They're going to say, you were the vice president, idiot. You can't do that. There's no basis for it. So him voluntarily turning it over is not this like charitable act of good faith. He doesn't even have a basis for a claim to them. That's why he gave them over. Trump does have a basis for a claim to those documents. It's called the Presidential Records Act, not the Vice Presidential Records Act. And that's what Trump was using, along with a whole other slew of legal basis for keeping the documents that he thought he was entitled to. So every time the media makes this claim that there was no obstruction, first of all, we don't know that, right? We haven't seen anything about this. We don't know why Biden had the documents in the first place. We also don't know why Biden didn't give the documents back and whether or not he signed any materials, any chain of custody documents confirming that that had all been disclosed. No idea. And so obstruction is, I would say, very plausible, but they're already writing it off. And they're trying to paper over that with this cooperation BS too, which is also BS. Biden had to give it over. Trump didn't. And Trump had a legal team that was making its arguments and litigating this stuff. And the government just said, it's ours, it's ours, it's ours. And he said, it isn't. And they said, well, we have the FBI, you don't, so we're just going to come take it. And if that was applicable to Trump, every one of those precedents has now been set and is applicable to the Democrats, but they are not going to distinguish these cases appropriately. That's why we have to do it here.
Well, do we really know that? For years, when Vice President Biden left office, it looks like he took classified documents with him, and he was very critical of President Trump. By the way, the only person that has the constitutional ability to declassify any documents is the President of the United States, not the Vice President. So if then Vice President Biden took classified documents with him and held them for years and criticized former President Trump during that same time that he had those classified documents, and only after it was uncovered did he turn them back. I wonder why the press isn't asking the same questions of him as Vice President taking classified documents that they were asking President Trump.
Yeah, great question. Why not? Why not ask that? Why is Joe Biden allowed to be, sort of his behavior excused as though, oh, well, they just found it. It was just a mistake. He gave them back right away. He had no choice but to give them back right away. Why was he in possession of them in the first place? If he had authority at some point in time, why didn't he confirm that there were no additional documents in his possession, right? Library books were checked out by Joe. Why didn't he have to check them back in? Trump is getting castigated for that. His library book checked back in, they say, was not complete. Was Joe's? Because Trump got raided for that. Here's Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds was also previously nominated for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Byron Donald is asked about Biden's classified document theft. Here's what he had to say.
Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. Let me get your reaction to the breaking news. You're a member of Congress. You deal with classified information. What's your reaction to this?
Oh, well, my reaction is pretty simple. I'm wondering why the Vice President of the United States had classified documents outside of the hands of the intelligence community. Listen, it's been pretty clear that presidents do have some classified documents. But the difference between a president and everybody else is the president has the ability to declassify information. The vice president has no ability to declassify information. So number one, what was he doing with classified information in his possession? Number two, why did it take 6 years? And I want to stress this for the American people. Joe Biden left the vice presidency in 2017. So it's taken 6 years for these documents to surface. That is incredibly concerning.
Yeah, either NARA didn't request them and they were okay with some classified documents floating around out there in the ether for people who were no longer in office, right? In which case their standards are pretty low, in which case those same standards should be applicable to Trump. And Trump shouldn't be the one who's, prosecuted criminally if it's just low standards. That's one option. Or number two, NARA didn't know the documents were missing. They didn't know the documents were gone, so they couldn't go and make an additional request. They couldn't go do what they did with Trump and say, you have overdue library books. because they didn't know the documents were gone, which begs the question, why were the documents gone and why didn't NARA have inventory of them?
And point number 3, and this is the one that's most important. Everybody can go back to the Hillary Clinton email saga. We know other presidents have had classified information, but why was there a raid on Mar-a-Lago? But now this story just kind of seeps out and everybody's saying, oh, we just want to get down to the bottom of it. And everybody's giving the benefit of the doubt.
No.
A vice president of the United States or a secretary of state or anybody else should not be having classified information, period.
And they have no declassification authority. They've got no ability to do any of the things that Trump did. Byron Donalds. Now, there are other Congress people who are chiming in. Andy Biggs, shout out to Arizona, also made an interesting point. Where did the money for the Biden organization come from? We have a lot of questions about this, in particular with Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family. We have a question from Andy Biggs. He says, Biden stole classified documents and stored them at his think tank while he was vice president. The vice president does not have any authority to declassify classified documents. And this think tank, allegedly, the one that we just saw a video of that has no people in there, that does Lord knows what, literally, global diplomacy and integration. No idea what they do. Apparently, according to Andy Biggs, they received $54 million in funding from the CCP. So there are classified confidential documents that have been housed in a closet somewhere at an organization that Joe Biden runs. It's basically empty in Washington that got $54 million in funding from the CCP. That's another distinguishing factor. I'm curious, did Mar-a-Lago get $54 million from the CCP that might have compromised them or not? And Trump had continual Secret Service protection. Don't know if that was there at this location, but that's his private personal residence. Okay, so you got to imagine that's a lot more secure than some empty office building on the outskirts of Washington or wherever it is. Absolutely another row that the media has forgotten to add. Trump wasn't funded by the CCP. Joe Biden evidently was. And we followed that through with the interviews with Garrett Ziegler. And you can go through. We haven't even cracked the surface on the Hunter Biden laptop, right? And whether there's any information there from Penn, Biden, so on and so. So you can check that out from Andy Biggs as well. Now, Trump responded to this over on Truth Social. Trump said 22 hours ago, when is the FBI going to raid the many homes of Joe Biden? Perhaps even the White House. These documents were definitely not declassified because he is the vice president, doesn't have the authority to do that. Trump also said, wow, the Biden think tank is funded by China. Also, a VP cannot declassify documents which are covered by the Federal Records Act, which is criminal and much tougher than the Presidential Records Act, which is not criminal. Trump's pulling out the law. A president, me, he says, can declassify. How much more information has China been given? And he also says the amount was $54 million that the Biden think tank received from China. That's a lot of money. Trump is speculating. He says they saw the classified documents. So for all the people who said that Trump was meeting with the Saudis at Mar-a-Lago and that he had, old Pootie Poo rolling around the golf club course with him, where is there hyperventilating on this one? Nowhere to be found. But the Republicans are in charge. They say this midterm, the midterm election, and other things may have been impacted by this, and they're demanding impeachment. Marjorie Taylor Greene says they're going to be focusing on holding them accountable. Scalise, Byron Donalds, James Comer, many others brought into the fold, and we'll see what the Republicans are able to unpack. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching this, and for hitting that subscribe button. We will continue to cover.